Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude at Beyond Mystic, and welcome to the second episode of Galactic Download with my friend Indigo Angel. You can find her work and you can support her at indigoangel222.com. So without further ado, let's give her a big warm welcome. Hi, Indigo. How are you today?
Hi, Jean-Claude. It's such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. Thank you for welcoming me to your live. It's been a while since we last spoke. And I know the last that I talked to you, I had told you that I was going to be reporting from Estonia. That was my most recent personal news, but a lot has changed since then. My flight got blocked on July 1st to entering the European countries. So Americans are currently banned from entering Europe and Canada and Mexico. Right now, we're quite on the lockdown in terms of the coronavirus and everything that's happening within our nation. And so it's a very interesting time.
Well, wait a second here. Did that take effect as you were traveling? Because I thought we were opening up, not closing back down. So how did that happen?
Yeah, that's kind of, I think, what everyone kind of thought what was happening as we were opening back up. But actually, no, we have been closing back down because the COVID cases here in the States have recently spiked. They haven't actually gone back down. The last that I checked, not that any of these numbers are necessarily correct, but they are rising. I think 40,000 cases in all of our most hit states, which would be California, Florida, Texas, New York. And so it's supposedly on the steady rise. They say that could be due to the fact that we are very efficient in our testing. But ultimately, there has been a lot of corruption within the testing systems. Also, like false reporting, just a lot of divided information. Intelligence sources are not cohesive in terms of what is being presented. And also the media hysteria is also blasting a lot of this fear-based stuff to the other nations and all of these things. And also because our current leadership, this is a personal, in my opinion, I feel doesn't value certain allies, so to speak. So currently, I think our leadership here is more allied along the lines with Russia, along the lines of Israel. I know Egypt has opened back up to us. I know Egypt is allowing Americans in, but I do know they are on a level 2 advisory. Which means that you will be on a 14-day quarantine if you enter Egypt, and that means I think that they quarantine you in their facilities. So I'm not sure if you can actually like get an Airbnb or like a hotel to quarantine or something like that. Because I've been looking into all of my travel options since this happened, because it was such I really thought I was going to get through. I really thought I was going to be able to get out of the States and do some traveling, just because if you actually try to get on and book a flight right now, they're still there. They're still available. So there's not, the information isn't getting out in terms of our limitations and what we can and can't do. The airlines don't even necessarily know. Like if you call their customer service line and everything to try to find out, well, can I travel? They don't really know. But yet they'll still take your money and charge you for your tickets. They are issuing refunds, and I've had to have that happen to me now twice. So I do have quite a bit of money up in the airlines waiting to be returned to me.
That's very sad. Welcome back to the show. I'm really happy that we're reconnecting. I'm sorry that your travel plans got interrupted here, but I think we have a great show set up. When you and I spoke last week, I think to set this up, you were getting strong intuitions to talk about this AI. So let me just bring up the slide here for people to see. So folks, today's conversation is about. We called it the Borg invader AI, of course, suppressing humanity's awakening. That's the fight we're in right now. So that was the poster for today's live stream. So this is an interactive show, guys. I really want you to comment and question as we go along. Please try to keep your questions on topic with the discussion while we're having it. And of course, we can do some open-ended questions at the end if you guys like. But I really appreciate the feedback and this interaction with with the live stream here. So thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you all to all the new subscribers, of course, and thank you to all the new Patreons. Really appreciate that. So Indigo, I want to give you really a lot of carte blanche here and a lot of room to set this up first. In our last interview, we did this galactic download. We talked a lot about these gates, the energetic gates. We kind of touched the subject of AI and some of the interference with these energetic gates. So people have a little bit of an understanding here where you're going, but let's set it up a little bit here so to paint a tableau before we get into more of the specific AIs, the different factions of the AIs and all that. We'll get to that later on in the show. So let's try to just set it up a little bit, and I'll let you loose here. And don't worry, I know sometimes when you start talking, you get these downloads. So I won't interrupt you. Keep going. I'll take mental notes, and then we can unpack some of the things that you're saying. So don't worry. Just let loose.
Well, you know, I do believe the last time I came on, we talked more in detail about the Trinity Gates, and just to have understanding, the gates in general are basically, they're a part of the planetary geomancy, or a part of the planetary's morphogenetic structures that uphold materialization processes and dematerialization processes in terms of reality fields for humanity. They uphold a lot of other structures as well, such as the planetary astral field. And that's a very important structure because the gate sites are basically the interconnecting point in terms of accessing the higher dimensions and even the lower dimensions of creation. And so that's why when we talk about these things, we're kind of focusing on the structures of planetary energy on the most quantified, I guess, spectrum in terms of our involvement with astrological alignments, with just the overall prophecy of the way that humanity is turning or shifting or rolling into. And so the topic today really does kind of evolve around this subject as well. So I want to talk about some other gate sites. So I don't want to talk about the Trinity Gate sites today. I want to talk about the actual Stargate signets that are upheld by the 6 founder nations, that are upheld by the 6 universal Stargate locations, which would be Orion, Andromeda, Lyra, Sirius, Pleiades, and Arcturus. Okay. Because of the current state of the world, and because of everything that's happening with coronavirus, and with all of the you know, at least here in the States, domestic terrorism and Black Lives Matters movements, Antifa, all of these things that are happening. What's kind of happening on an energetic level is these major universal Stargate signets are actually really heavily blocked at this time. These are very damaged Stargate sites. And the reason why I was actually going to Estonia was to get to the Syrian Stargate site in Moscow, Russia, because I was going to do an intervention, ultimately to anchor in the Christed healing codes, which ultimately right now at this time are coming from the Emerald Sun. Which is most activated at this time right now due to the alignment with Sirius. Sirius is bringing in the blue light and the recalibration of the blue light, which ultimately brings in the emerald light, which is high-end 12-strand DNA activations for all of those who are kind of tuned into the DNA and to those 12-strand genetic upgrades in the body. Essentially, because the Emerald Diamond Sun elevates one up to the 48-strand genetics, and so it's a high DNA activation. And I have spoke about this a lot in my previous Syrian update on my channel. I did a reading where I actually went into the misalignment of the Syrian Stargate, because I do feel like there's some confusion here, and I do feel that the location in Moscow, Russia, is being heavily used for misredirection of food source into the phantom matrices, because the true Syrian gate sites actually run from the South Pole, and they generate through West Africa into through the Dogon tribes, up into the northern hemisphere of the planet, and then ultimately up into the magnetic North Pole. It is a vertical south to north generating ley line current, radial current for global distribution and planetary manifest destiny, of course. Are you still with me?
Yes, 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 very good. Let me just backtrack you here because you talked about this mission you wanted to go, and this is why you were traveling through Estonia to get to Russia to do a specific mission on a gate there. Why don't we backtrack a little bit and share with the folks, if you want to, your mission in California and why that was opportune at that time, and who you were with maybe, and what your mission was, and build up as to, and then let's go back to what you wanted to do in Russia and maybe what we're going to do further along here as things develop on the planet.
Sure. So with the Trinity Gate site in Malibu Beach, California, I was going there on a Guardian mission to basically reconnect the third dimensional fields, which are trifurcated at the Trinity Gates. That's why it's called the Trinity Gate, is because realities are trifurcated. And these trifurcated realities are portions of them, high percentage portions of them, are actually feeding the phantom matrix systems, which is used for soul harvesting, which is used as a food source essentially to basically feed these lower underworlds, these undercurrents, and these deeper negative alien agendas, so to speak. So as a Guardian mission, I was guided to go there with another girlfriend and a couple other friends as well, where we came together and we did a fire ceremony to basically bring forth the transformation, the fire of transformation from Easter Islands, and anchor in the 4 Christos pillars. And the pillars are what uphold the quantified atomic, subatomic reality fields that are basically upheld by the pillars, the realms, the worlds, the spheres that basically uphold those reality fields and structures. And so we went there to basically spiritually, metaphorically, and symbolically anchor this in as a light worker mission, ultimately. Yeah, so I mean, it was a very profound experience. And having gone there, I can see the ways in which the realities are fed upon, manipulated, and hijacked. It became very apparent to me that it's a very slow degradation process that affects the people that are living there.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they fall unconscious to this. It's definitely through addiction. It's definitely through the temptations of Satanism and Silicon Valley, and basically all of the things that are responsible for a lot of the lower human reality fields that are responsible for human trafficking, child abduction, all of the things that are happening that are just not,
let me put you on pause here for just a second. I'm watching the chat here, and a few people are like, what did she just say? So, folks, I understand Indigo has a very precise language and very unique to herself when she's communicating the frequency and her message. And so I appreciate that. For a lot of us, there's a learning curve. And actually, Indigo and I thought about doing a kind of a compendium video series where we would lay out some of these terms and put them in more layman's speak here for you guys moving on, because we're going to do more of these videos. But let me Indigo, try to re-encapsulate what you just said for the audience here. So guys, you've watched, so most of my viewers are familiar with Carrie Cassidy, people who do that type of work, and we understand that on this planet we're basically slaves, we're cattle, and we're being harvested and used and eaten, and whether that's energetically or physically, there's all these things happening. And you just mentioned now the child trafficking things. So guys, what Indigo is saying, and what her field of view and expertise is that she really understands the networks by which this harvest is happening on the planet. And so if you look at the grids, there's certain times that are energetically more active, where some of these entities can come in and focus on certain grids to extract energy basically from the planet. And so Indigo herself and some of her friends are working on a very spiritual, high spiritual level to try to attenuate or to close some of these gates when they're trying to open up and again go to harvest their energy. So that would be the layman's explanation of what you just said. Indigo, if you want to correct me there a little bit or realign what I just said, go ahead. I'll let you maybe adjust that a little bit. But I think for the folks that was useful just to kind of understand. Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, thank you. That helps me a lot actually, because I guess I'm maybe not always fully aware of how I'm being perceived. I kind of just I do ramble off a lot, and so I am working on that. I am trying to become more conscious of how I'm being perceived. But yeah, no, you pretty much just explain it. I definitely do feel that we are like the boots on the ground, because we are basically holding light and disseminating shadow simultaneously. And we have basically made it our life mission to be committed to doing everything we can to hold open the most natural, organic, cohesive flow of energy structures that we as humanity can attune to and attain to in this life, to basically assist with bringing in and ushering in the golden age, the new earth, the fifth dimensional reality fields, and helping those who are unconscious and those who are trapped within these certain matrix systems according to their programming or according to unforeseen circumstances. Just there's all kinds of reasons why people maybe haven't tuned or tapped into this energy, but there are people on this planet that are working diligently to assist these unconscious facets of the world, and so that's where I work, and that's where I'm committed. And so it does require me to detach a lot from my humanness, and also a lot of times my perception as how I'm being perceived as a human, because I have to let go of that to be able to access these realms and worlds, to be able to disseminate and decipher what is actually playing out within the subatomic spectrums. And so,
Well, that's very good, and I need as an interviewer here to kind of pull you back down so we can explain it to all the humans. And so bear with me here, but we're doing good. I think we're doing good. We just had a comment here. Okay, I understand totally. Thank you. So we're putting that back into context. Somebody else said here too. Where is it? I thought it was funny, but it's a good point. Maybe a flow chart would help. Do you, in the way you explain this sometimes on your Patreon, do you use graphics as well while you're talking? I know sometimes you bring up the symbols when you're doing your meditation and Merkaba and the protection fields and all that. But in terms of the grid, maybe that's something for us to think about during the next show, to maybe map it out a little bit and show it.
Yeah. Mapping is definitely something that I have invested a lot of my time into. I do get on scribblesmapsalot.com. I have about 5 maps that I've already mapped out and have done very extensive galactic energy updates in terms of how energy currents are generating, where the Stargate signets are located, where they're connected to on a galactic spectrum, like which locations planetarily are connected to which galactic gates. I've really broken this down in a lot of quantified detail, but also in my scrambled mess as well. So you do have to decipher through that, I think, when you watch me.
So is that on your YouTube channel for everyone, or is that on the Patreon, or is that on your website?
I have extensively about 6 or 7 videos on the Patreon in regards to grid keeping and gatekeeping, and then I probably have about the same amount on my YouTube channel. Okay. But they are, within probably like the last year, so you kind of have to dig for those videos. Okay. Yeah, I do have those available, and I do want to get back into it more. With doing more regular grid and energy updates. I've kind of fallen off of that a little bit just because the universe starts like realigning me to all kinds of different directions. But I always kind of come back to that because I am currently writing a grid keepers book that is going to coincide a map for grid keepers that I'm going to create. It's just in the process of doing that. It's taken a very long time to put all this information together. This is about the last 3 years of my research. And so, it's just putting all of the information together. Takes some time.
That's fascinating. And to the folks out there live with us and also on the replay, please put your energy to help Indigo finish this book, because there's a lot of people out there who are starting to tap into these energies, and it would be very useful to see these maps and to read, really what's going on. And for the people who are watching this now, and most of you who subscribe to me have watched a lot of my videos with the remote viewers, Dick Allgaier, and they're talking about right now energies coming in from space. This is what they're viewing. They're viewing energies coming from space that's reopening or activating ancient sites or ruins here on the planet. So Indigo is not coming from left field here. There's a lot of other people, with their specific frame of view. We all have a frequency with which we go through life and we experience things. But she's correlating with a lot of the stuff that the remote viewers are saying. So why don't we get into that a little bit in terms of the sacred sites around the world? So you talked about Moscow, you want to go there. Is there anything else right now that you see that's lighting up or that's about to light up, or there's work to be done? Maybe we can get into that a little bit.
Yes, and this definitely does coincide, I think, the topic of conversation today in terms of the Borg. And so I kind of have laid out some of this information here as I was talking about Moscow, Russia being one of the universal Stargate sites for Sirius. Now, this Stargate site particularly has always been phantomly suspicious to me. Just because it is kind of off in terms of location, in terms of all of the other Stargates. And then also when you actually really feel into the Stargates in the grid sites and really tune into Antarctica and the meaning of Antarctica and the locations of the celestial bodies, it just doesn't make sense how Moscow, Russia represents Sirius. So I feel like there's a lot of distortion in that. Given that information, it's brought me into this revelation that there are particular gate sites right now planetarily, such as Russia, and Iran, North Korea, and China. These are the most damaged and the most dangerous Stargates in the world. These are the most highly blocked and the most highly hijacked. And so in terms of grid keeping, gatekeeping, all of these things, it's really important right now that people are seeking to heal these Stargate sites. It would relieve a lot of pressure on the rest of the world. It would allow flow and harmonization and cohesiveness to infuse the grids again, because right now there's a lot of blockages within Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China in terms of Stargate locations, because the Stargate locations coincide not only the fundamental consciousness on a galactic scale, but they coincide governmental consciousness. They coincide that nation, that civilization, how they treat the rest of the world, how they interact with the rest of the world, how they go about implementing treaties, how they go about implementing their commandments, their behavioral, universal morals. This is all fundamental to the Stargate's consciousness, ultimately. And so in terms of being a planetary healer, it's really, really important because those particular Stargates, those most dangerous, those most damaged Stargates, are basically running reversals into fallen systems. Okay. And this is all through shadow warfare. This is all through cyber espionage. Okay. Cyber spying. This is how they're infiltrating and interacting through these gate sites. This has become about AI machine wars, and this has become about using various AI attacks through these gate sites to block the gates and to aggressively threaten permission of information.
So let's get into that. This is the segue into the topic really for today's show, which is that Borg invader AI. And I should put AI plural there because there's more than one, and they're born from different places here. So first I had a question, and maybe somebody's putting it unlocked in the chat here, but why are those gates that you just mentioned so damaged and dangerous? What's happened? Why is that the fact right now?
Well, I mean, a lot of this is out of individual people's hands. This is collective consciousness. This is race wars. race lineages that are seeking dominance and power on the planet. It's about a lot of different things. It's not just one thing, but it's a lot of division. It's a lot of inability to see originality and the origin of humanity. It's also a lot of infiltration by species that are just not cohesive with each other in terms of genetic design and protein design. These are a lot of insectoid lineages. These are.
Now you're opening up a whole new can of worms. Okay, let me pause you on that one here. Let's stay focused on track. And also, I wanted to encourage the people in the chat, because a lot of my viewers are familiar with the work of Florida Maki. And a couple of months ago, he had discovered, along the help with his viewers, this grid on the planet that was all connected with all these pentagons around the world, some ancient monuments, pentagon-shaped mounds, and outcroppings. And what he was surmising, and what the other people were surmising, was that there was an original network, an original technology, Earth-based technology on the planet. And what he's discovered was that there was an overlay of other networks basically hacking that one. So it's like an imposter network hacking the original network. And so we as humans, we are connected to this original network. We're connected to source, which right now that connection has been severed for most humans. And we're connected, of course, to the ley lines and to these energetic grids on the planet, which also now is being infected. So again, Indigo is not coming out of left field here. There's a lot of other researchers that are starting to point to this. Now let's get into the AI. So humans right now, and we're all feeling it, there's an awakening happening on the planet. It seems to be accelerating, but in conjunction with that, we seem to be getting more and more suppressed by some of these technologies. And I think this was the point of the show today. Not sure at the end how we're going to close this yet, so we're gonna feel this with some of our viewers and see what comments and questions they have. But let's start setting up now this overlay, or this artificial intelligence, or negative or satanic artificial intelligence that's been superposed now. So let's start maybe fleshing that out a little bit, Indigo, for the viewers here.
Yeah, sure. So it's not exactly what people think, because no one is physically seeing a robot running around causing chaos and mass destruction. So the idea of AI is encrypted at this time. It's encrypted in a lot of different programs. It's encrypted in a lot of different neuro connections. And how it kind of works is they are kind of like silent shadow infections that are, and I don't want to say infections, because I mean, there is a lot of AI development that can be seen as beneficial. I mean, clearly Elon Musk is very excited about the development of humanity, but there's also a lot of speculation about who Elon Musk is like truly working for. Is he a super villain, or is he a super angel? You know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of speculation about his involvement as well, but because he's designing Neuralink, where they're going to basically put the chip in the base of the brain that immediately connects the brain to electronics, to artificial intelligence. What I was talking about, though, in terms of this aggressive AI, where it's feeding the shadow matrices. It's basically kind of like silent shadow infections. They're similarly to kind of like catching a virus, like your computer catches a virus. And this is how they're suppressing humanity, is these intruders are basically like invisible, and they originate from a Borg intelligence. And the Borgs are alien groups. They are reoccurring antagonists, and they are cybernetic organisms, and they are linked into specific hive minds. And they are reporting to colony headquarters, essentially within galactic intelligences. So this can seem kind of dark. This kind of goes into a lot of these things, but I mean, this is, these are all of the possibilities and the probabilities that all of creational aspects can ultimately present. So you do have to really keep an open mind when you're talking about this stuff. but essentially it's reporting to multiple hives in the universe. And so right now intelligences are deciphering which hives are actually fully involved. I've encoded personally a couple different hives and their locations within the galactic sectors, and some of them actually lie within exoplanets and things like this. So it's very, very encrypted. It's particularly within negative alien agendas and insectoid nations, and their agenda is to assimilate forcibly their Borg co-opt technology through transforming drones, homogenized humans, genetically modified humans, cyborg humans, as Elon Musk delicately dances to say, zetas, by injecting nano probes into their bodies. This is the ultimate goal, and this is already you're seeing play out through the development through basically through vaccines and things like that. So it's very extensive. It's very encrypted through multiple different levels and ways that it's coming through. And like I said, Elon Musk, he's working with the Borgs through Neuralink, connecting the brain with AI. So these processes of dissemination have already begun. And it's by simply how it's affecting us personally. It's by attacking our outreaches through the algorithms. This full-scale operation, it's deeply, deeply involved. It's hidden, it's dispersed, it's a part of your everyday interaction as you know it on the internet. And I know that a lot of people may not want to hear these messages at this time. And I understand this really isn't in alignment to the higher outcome of humanity. And I don't even know how I personally got to this place sometimes. But this vast world of shadow, machine viral warfare, it's real. It exists. And we can choose to ignore it as if it doesn't exist. But many will choose to do that in terms of the things of the world. But I think that if you you just act like it doesn't exist, that you can only ignore it for so long.
Give me a second here. I think there's the delivery man at the door. My dog is going ballistic. So let me just, folks, hold on here. I'll be right back. Okay, I think we're back. Sorry for the interruption. It was the UPS driver. Okay, can you hear me now? I'm back.
I can hear you. That's fine.
Okay, so there's a couple of good comments here, and actually, let me bring that up. I think it was Harley Davidson. I wanted to start with him. Where is he here? This went just fast while I was going. Okay, here's a good one. So he says, just when you think you're woken up, you realize I'm not seeing any of this. So basically, I know what you're saying, Harley, because the whole point of this channel, Beyond Mystic, is going in beyond the intellect, right? So when we're waking up, one of the first phases of waking up is really finding out what's happening on the planet. So for most people, oh, that's the financial system, it's the geopolitics, it's the religion, blah, 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 the past history that's been hidden from us. So yeah, there's a lot there. And then there's behind that gate, right? And so Indigo is way behind that gate. So there's a lot of information there. And again, it's not because you don't see it that it's not there. As humans, we only see a very tiny portion. I think it's 1% of 1% of the light spectrum. So it's not because you don't see it that it's not there. And of course, we know here on the as above, so below. Here on Earth, there's groups that are trying to install these AI programs or how do you call them? Expert learning systems to try to track humans and make even better slaves of us. There's that on this level, but there's a whole higher overarching level. In the interview with Carrie Cassidy, I think she talked about 7 or 8 different AI factions working right now. Some more benevolent, I guess, to the human race, and some obviously not. So there's a lot of intricacies here that are taking place. I think what Indigo is getting into is that she's tapping into that and specifically through the gates, because the gates and this network is where a lot of this gets in, basically like a network, like a computer network, and accesses human energy for that. What do you call it? The harvest. So
kind of like Neurolinks, because I think the ambitious development of AI is ultimately man's desire to recreate the human brain as a machine.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of it's taken a lot of life forms from that. There are things called thought batteries. They've taken these life forms. They've been birthed from this creational hierarchy of the unified field of intelligence, which in itself is immaculate, but it's ultimately it can be dangerous to organic human.
Right.
And I think this will at some point propagate cyber global cultural revolution under the transhuman agendas, through digital predators, through bot crawlers, through parasites. This is how they can infiltrate through these gate sites particularly. And this is, then it extenuates and connects through particularly into the chats. So we could have a chat right now and have a bot crawler come in, and have a parasite come in. And you can recognize these. A lot of times they'll say things like, "Can we be friends?" They won't say like, anything to call them into it. It's nothing, it's very non-human like, because it like someone just come in and say, "Can we be friends?" Like it's kind of strange how they come in, but they come in to monitor.
Yeah.
They come in to watch you. They come in to read your titles and scan you for key and encoded words that are within their preset algorithms, their preset arithmetics, to place you in specific algorithms, categories, to basically limit you and block you. And how they're doing it on the internet is symbolic to how they're doing it at the gate sites, right?
Right. Wandering Wild Woman here says, I feel that some of the artificial energy lines are gone, and that is why I guess the other ones are more aggressive now. Do you have a take on that? What do you think about that comment, Indigo?
Say that again.
So basically, if you look at the screen here, I've pulled up her comment. She says, I feel that some of the artificial energy lines are gone, and that is why there are more aggressive now. So I guess the remaining ones are more aggressive now. Do you have a feel for what she's saying? Do you understand what she's saying?
Well, I do feel overall that the gridding structure has been weakened. That there has been a dismantling within the grid structures that has allowed for more infiltration, allowed for more accelerative force. In terms of, even if you just look at some of the visualizations of the magnetosphere.
Yeah.
And you see all of the tangling of the magnetosphere, and you see how it's just being like ripped apart and torn all kinds of different ways. And you notice how the increases in the Schumann resonance has gone up and all of these things. I feel like all of these outside forces have continued to weaken the infrastructure. And so it's allowed for more aggressive forms of infiltration, because while we are distracted taking care of one thing, another thing is gaining momentum and progress. And
Right.
so
and also I think from my perspective, some of this weakening of some of the gates, or maybe the control of the gates, also has a positive side, because it's helped some of the humans be able to access them, to restore them to the original frequencies and codes and stuff like that. So it works both ways. And this is where Indigo and her elk, are really helping the planet. And this is unseen to most people. You're not going to see this or hear about this on the 6 o'clock news. So Red says here, he had a comment. I guess we're going back to your comment about Elon Musk. So he was just agreeing with you that he was wondering the exact same thing, so that you made a good comment there. Okay, let me see if we have any other questions that are specific here. What as normal humans? Oh, that's a good question, Crypto Tarzan. So, as normal humans, what can we do to block or reject some of these entities, these AIs? So, I guess to answer that properly, Indigo, you might want to clarify which AI you're talking about and what defense mechanism you can have for each of them. So, I'll let you tackle this one a little bit.
Well, in terms of a galactic perspective, I do feel specific nations are on the forefront of artificial intelligence development. One of those is Orion. I do feel like Orion is probably the leaders right now in artificial intelligence development. And so it's just something to take note of. But they are working cohesively with other nations. This is all a part of the greater evolution. This is all a part of the greater development of humanity and the way that we're going. Survival of the fittest does fall in alignment with this, right? Pole shift falls in alignment with this. Shifting of powers, going from positive to negative, meaning that powers that once were on this planet are now shifting over to, a different ruler, so to speak, where we have the masculine patriarchal rulership giving way now to matriarchal rulership. Now we see this shift in the divine feminine, where the divine feminine is rising. You see this shift into even the original melanated woman rising up in power. You see the white man taking more of an active cohesiveness to place the melanated woman beside them in terms of power. So you're gonna see this rise with that. So all of this is shifting. All of these things in terms of AI development is a part of this greater expression of humanity and the way that we're evolving and the way that we're supposed to go. We're not gonna like what has to happen in terms to get there. I mean, we're ultimately evolving to Andromeda, and we're going to become an aquatic species. So this viral mutation may have been necessary to begin to shift the genetic encoding in terms of our lungs and the way that we go about becoming that aquatic species.
Okay, now you're opening up another can of worms. Hold on a sec. Let's get back. Let's get back to Crypto Tarzan here. And I love this because this is, man, when you start talking with me, it's just amazing. I'm like, I see 10 shows down the road. I'm like, there's so many things we can talk about with you. That's amazing. Okay, so let's get on just on the really core level. Let's talk about, just to classify it here, malevolent AI, maybe human-based or somewhat human-based AI in conjunction with ET. What can we do as humans to kind of either block or reject some of that energy and transformation? Let's tackle at least that one before we get too high on the galactic level.
I think in terms of staying organic and staying whole, you definitely have to practice higher consciousness as your priority. You definitely have to focus on the building and the clearing and the cleaning and the clearing and the maintaining of your own light body. You have to also protect yourself with a spiritual armor, because there is a lot of things that are infiltrating us from all kinds of unseen dimensions and densities.
Right.
And so we do have to make that the priority right now. There's some things that I personally do to do that. One of the things I most recently did was I used sacred geomancy, and I inducted it into my body through visualization and breath work, and programmed them into my chakra reels to emanate out as a spiritual armor, to emanate out as a spiritual protection. And so I think just continuously working on the rebalancing.
Wait. So that video, I've seen that one. Is that open to the public, or is that on your Patreon? Where is that video located?
That one is on my Patreon.
Okay.
So patreon.com/Indigo Angel. I called it a powerful protection synthesis, induction and synthesis. Okay. And so,
yeah, so guys, if you're interested in that, and there's more videos, Indigo has a lot of different visualization techniques for protection, for energy transmutation, and all this stuff. So really, go check out our Patreon. There's a lot of cool stuff there. So Robert, Crypto Tarzan, I think that answers your question. I would like to add to that too, because Indigo spoke about protecting the light body, and for me personally, part of that is doing the sun gazing. So it's really recharging with our sun through your pineal gland, just making that connection and kind of filling your internal body with that light. Because when that light's in your body, you can see where there's darkness, and you can basically push out the darkness by bringing in the light. So that would be one visualization technique. I find it useful for me. Maybe it can work for you guys. In terms of, what was that? Sorry, you broke up.
I was just agreeing with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, but thank you, Crypto Tarzan. That was a great question. Okay, where do you want to take it from here? Maybe not on the aquatic, because I think that's a whole other show.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. I know I was probably getting to a point that came back into being relevant. But I think ultimately this message today is just to help other internet users that are using these particular platforms, such as Instagram, right, Facebook, YouTube. Like, how is this artificial intelligence infiltration affecting us in our everyday use, in our everyday connection with the machine? So I think collectively it is kind of forcing us to be able to understand what we're up against for personal growth and success, merging our realities with the machine, because whether we want to admit it or not, like, this is what we're doing, and we're up against these algorithms, and I feel like we are forced to kind of surrender defeat sometimes to these preset algorithms, right? Because these preset algorithms basically dictate our growth, our success. So we have to become machine-minded to be able to understand them, how to get around them, how to outgrow them, because we're kind of behind right now in terms of the human mind. We're behind. We're catching up to try to just understand what they're doing.
Right. And I think, how do I say this? The invention of the cell phone is great because I can pick up the phone, call you right now and talk to you. It's all that. But really, at the same time, what it's done is it's removed my ability to contact with you telepathically, right? So that contact, which is our technology, our artificial technology and our networks, the way our heart works and the electromagnetic pulses that we emanate, like that frequency and that connection between the 0 point in me and the 0 point in you, and collapsing that space in between. We humans have this technology. It's built into our birthday suit, but with all this, like in the Florida Marquis experiment thing, they're saying, well, there's this overlay of this technology that's kind of usurping or diminishing or making null and void the technology that we have, because we're not using it. We're being suppressed by this other technology. And so I am Polly P here says, that's it. I'm throwing out my electronics. I'm going to move to the farm.
It's true, but it's not true. It's actually enhancing it. I do feel it's kind of enhancing it, because once again, if you're making consciousness a priority, there are visualizations you can do to enhance your telepathy by staying connected to that heart-based center, and then also using technology and merging with it to enhance your ability to perceive those radio waves or that data that comes through.
Okay. I'm not disagreeing you on that point, but you're talking about the individual or this full spectrum human that's already woken up to that, seeing it and now using it to his advantage. Most humans are not on that level. They barely have a clue. They're the walking zombies that we talk about. So for them, this AI is really suppressing their ability to do anything on the telepathic or psychic level. But for those who, like you say, are already using these skills and being able to see it and how they're being used, it gives you an insight on how to maybe recatapult and turn on those breaker switches within your own inherent technology. Is that what you're saying? If that's what you're saying, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I think we're both correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank God. And guys, it's okay. I don't agree with everything my guests say, and of course, they don't always agree with me. And that's the whole point. We're having this conversation, and we're trying to learn from each other. And of course, we're trying to learn from people in the chat as well. So if you guys have specific questions, please continue to populate them with your comments as well, and I'll try to bring them up as we go. This is a fascinating conversation. So is there a little bit more here that you want to dive into? I think that this grid thing is important, and these sites that are waking up. Maybe we can trail back into that, or if you have more on the AI, we can follow that thread a little bit more. I'll leave it really up to you. I mean, you're on. I always love it when you're on, and I want to let you loose because that's when all the magic happens. So go ahead and take the floor here.
Yeah, I was just trying to think. so I'm still kind of on algorithms.
Okay.
And kind of understanding what they are, because I know that you resonated with my post, and I feel like you resonated with it for a reason, in terms of just the things that I think you're seeing with your own connection with YouTube and the algorithms. And so I think it's kind of like important to understand that what they are, that they are computer instructions, preset computer instructions that basically filter information on your posts and videos, that basically perform the computation, but also the automated reasons for its next step. So YouTube specifically is prompting their algorithms accordingly. And it is working deep within the gates, the different artificial intelligences within the algorithms, the thought batteries, the digital predators, the bot crawlers. This is ultimately, they already know the fate of your post even before you post it, because they've already basically labeled your channel in terms of levels of advisories that they watch your channel fundamentally, and your success to grow, and the rate of the growth of your channel. So they have already systemically predicted through their algorithms and through their infiltrated parasites, I like to call them, to dictate that outcome. And so it comes down to arithmetics. This is all arithmetics. This is all Babylonian mathematics.
And speaking of that, you're right on the money, because I was just inching up to 5,000 subscribers, and I was watching the ticker tape because, there's milestones. It's a new channel. I watch this and I'm intrigued by all of this stuff. And I'm watching the daily stats, +2, +4, -1, +10 subscribers. And then suddenly a couple of days ago, I had -200. It's back down to 4. I'm like, did I say something wrong? But yet my numbers went down from 200. But if you looked at the graph, nothing changes. It was all for most, like every day, there's +5, +6, -1, but it doesn't account the -200. So there was that just happened. I was like, who's fucking with me here? And I said that in an interview with somebody. There's an AI playing tricks here. And also with that parody video I did, it was called "Go Fuck Yourself, Antifa," and of course, probably that's.
You got something on that, I'm sure.
Yeah, but what's funny with that one, it was a fun. Of course, it's a parody video, and I was trying to make it a joke of it, but still, I was at 3,000 views, and then suddenly it was under 2,000. I'm like, wait, how did I lose 1,000 views on that video? That's a whole other thing. And then the comments started disappearing. So I started taking snapshots of comments saying, hey, there's something happening weird with the numbers here. And one of them was Rex Bear. He has a big channel, The Leak Project, and he had commented on the video, and suddenly his comment was completely disappeared. And I had the screen grab of his comment. So something weird's happening. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the more I speak about these topics, and I have guests that come on and speak about these topics, I guess we're gonna deal with this AI or these bots as you're talking about. So this is why I really appreciate you guys subscribing and hitting the like button and sharing with other people, so that we can do our best to get her to at least try to attenuate some of this AI manipulation of these numbers so that these messages can come out. So again, really appreciative of the new subscribers and the new Patreons. Whatever number it says on my YouTube, I just don't believe it anymore. So we'll see where all that goes.
That's definitely what they're doing. They're going in, they adjust the views. They will adjust your subscribers by unchecking the notifications. So if to your subscribers, if you really enjoy Jean-Claude's channel Beyond Mystic, I would suggest just occasionally checking your notifications to make sure that you're still connected, because you may go in after a 2 to 3 month period and seeing that you've been unsubscribed or even unnotified. Is because they will occasionally go in and do that. They'll also, another thing that's really important too to pay attention to is how many views you get within your first 24 hours. That's a big thing for the algorithms of YouTube. Is so if you don't reach like their quote unquote arithmetics and what they determine as a marker point, as what they will pump out to the algorithms. If you don't reach like a certain limit, then they won't actually push your video out.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things a lot of different things that they're doing, and it's immense and it's various. Another thing that they do too is if let's say you can't take a lot of time off of YouTube. you can't take more than a couple weeks because your outreach will drop in half immediately. So you have to be maintaining your post and your involvement, because it's checking to see how often you're involved. There's a lot of different various ways in which they're going about it. So it's interesting.
Let's talk about some positivity here. I want to focus this for the audience too. I mean, yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff shit trying to suppress us, but that's also because we're a strong force to be reckoned with, and everything they throw at us, we keep coming back, and we're still waking up, and we're still growing as humans. So let's have your view on that a little bit and see what you think humanity is going towards in the next little while, and what's your optimism for the human race?
Definitely. So yes, a lot of this is playing out. A lot of this is happening. I personally, I know that I can probably be perceived as having like a pessimistic viewpoint on some of this stuff by the way that it comes out and it's expressed and the way that we're talking about it. But ultimately, I do feel that the light will win. I do feel that nothing goes unseen in terms of consciousness and intelligence. And so when things are being put upon humanity in terms of oppression and suppression, those original intentions do begin to disseminate from the foundation if they are not in the greatest good of all involved. Because that ultimately is, I feel, what universal consciousness is geared to manifest, so to speak, in terms of the way that humanity is going. So there's reasons why limitations get put upon things for some reason. Sometimes we're not ready for the information. There's a lot of positive galactic nations that are involved in terms of intervention. Specifically the 6 universal creator nations, specifically Lyra and Sirius. These nations are involved here in the creation of humanity to prevent nuclear warfare, to prevent the overcoming and takeover of AI over the organic human. Like, they are here to see humanity thrive and the most natural, cohesive evolution prevail. And so I ultimately think, yes, we don't really have anything to worry about. But we do get caught up in the subatomic quantum mechanics of it all, and deciphering and disseminating all of the information and exposing the information and bringing it to light, because we are all cohesively a part of that creational foundational crack that sometimes needs to happen in order for things to grow. So I think we embody the resistance sometimes in order to grow. And I think that's just a part of the evolutionary cycles of life.
Yeah. Here's a great compliment to you. Four-leaf clover says, being so young and knowing so much, you're amazing. I agree with that. Thank you again, Indigo, for being on the show and being so brave also to talk about all of this, because you have such a unique frequency, and your message is difficult to hear for a lot of people, and I'm honored to be able to kind of massage some of your language so that it can reach more people here, and more people can focus in on this aspect of us waking up. Because if we're in the dark about it, we can't do anything about it. That's the first thing. You don't know what you don't know, and Indigo is the type of person that brings new knowledge to the table, and of course that's what this channel is all about. So four-leaf clover, thank you so much. Polly B says also, without pessimism, your optimism is less vulnerable. Right. I agree. And that was the point of me asking Indigo here, like, what's the bright side of all of this? And to me, I forgot who said this in an interview. It's years ago, but it really stuck with me. You know, they keep pushing us, humanity, pushing us down and doing all these horrible things to us. It's kind of like that cement, and then suddenly, you know, this 10-foot block of cement, and suddenly there's a blade of grass coming through. You know, that's humanity for us. We're still up there. We're still coming up. We're still showing up. And there's another comment here about
And there's so much opportunity to grow, but we do have to find ways around the resistance. We have to find ways around the oppression. I hear a lot of indigos, a lot of empaths, a lot of starseeds say they don't want to be here anymore. They just want to be picked up in light ships. They don't want to reincarnate. And I always feel just a little bit like, don't say that, you know, because this is such, and I don't want to say don't say that, because everybody has their own divine will, their own divine choice. But this is just one lifetime of oppression. You've lived thousands of lifetimes of oppression. You know, if you see yourself in terms of eternal consciousness, and you see yourself in terms of a 950 billion scale of the Milky Way, if you see yourself as the Milky Way, if you see yourself as planetary consciousness, you know that you are greater and you are beyond any blockage that could ever get in your way. Even if you were to up and, you know, heaven forbid something tragic were to happen to you, I mean, you would come back in with new opportunity, and you would be really actually placed in alignment with the soul growth and the soul work that you achieved in this lifetime.
Yeah. I want to echo what you just said here too, with the star seeds, the indigos, the blue rays, all those guys, the wanderers, the walk-ins. Having a show in the next couple of days with the walk-in too, that would be really cool. You know, some of them, yes, like you say, they're long in the tooth. They're really tired. They just want to go back home. And for me, my message, and I hope humanity would echo my messages, stay a little longer, because this is the show. We're here, we're now, it's right now. And the jewel is here. Earth is the jewel. It is the paradise, and we can make it so. But we all have to come together now. We're all on stage, and we're about to hit the final act, so to speak. So I want to encourage all you guys to stick with us a little bit longer. And I said this in the show last night. Somebody asked, well, what did you learn this year? And for me, one of my big aha moments, as I'm online now and having these live interactions on video, like, it came to me that humanity, of course, is absolutely worth saving. And so for you indigos out there who came here to do that exact mission, yeah, there's a lot of us waking up now, and you can see it in the chat rooms. You can see it. And this is to the Barry Jackson's comment here. He was saying that I don't think it's going to go that way, where we go to, you know, humanity, Borg machines and all that, because there's too many people waking up in channels like this. And I agree with you. The more that we share this, and the more that we have indigo angels who are sharing these knowledges and these inner knowings, the more we can take back control of our own destiny. And I think that's what it's all about. So yeah. I am Polly P says, this is better than the Sci-Fi Channel, hands down. Thank you, Polly P. Appreciate that. Okay, so guys, if you have specific questions for Indigo, now is the time. Indigo is very, very psychic. She has an ability to connect very quickly to the Akashic and to Source and to her guides, and she's quite amazing on that level. So I'm not sure how much we can do that live, but if you have specific questions for her on any topic, now's the time. Please put it into the chat box here. And for you, Indigo, as we wait for that to come up, if those questions do come up, is there anything else today that you feel guided that you wanted to bring forth in terms of information, whether that's AI or anything else, as you're guided here and you're seeing the comments? I'll let you take the floor here for a while I scan for some questions for you.
I think one thing that I was thinking about last night was, I realized with everything that I do in terms of my energy work, everything that I put out in terms of the videos that I create, that I feel that I am almost dreaming awake the prophecy. I am almost dreaming awake the reality and the outcome of the world and even the nation in which I reside. And so I've realized over the last couple of days, especially with being so frustrated with being blocked from being able to internationally travel, that I think we all have a responsibility to take responsibility for the things that are happening within the planet, to take responsibility for what's happening within our nation, to take responsibility for the things of the world, because it gives you the drive to do something about it. And I think we forget that we don't have we feel like we don't have power to do something. We feel like we don't make a difference. We feel like our voice isn't heard. We feel like our vote doesn't count, and that's not true. It's not true. Our voices matter. Every time that you bring somebody's vibration up, every time that you bring your own vibration up, any time that you focus on the smallest point of light, period, you are expediting the healing of the world. And so I really want to just give this love and just be like, we can do so much with our mind. And so I think just really tuning into that and just taking every opportunity that we have to begin painting the future. Right. Because I feel like that's what we're doing with every thought that we have. We're painting the future and the outcome of reality. And so many people, and that's why there's this momentum and acceleration in this ball that's rolling in the direction of a lot of warfare. I'm seeing a lot of warfare. I mean, we have Mars going into Aries until January 2021. Mars going into Aries. Like the planet of war going into the sign of war. So this can be a make or break point. Yeah. And if the collective, if the majority of the Merkabas, if the majority of the bioenergetic fields in the world are defeated, well, we're going to manifest this defeated reality. So it's really important that we get our vibrations up and we start manifesting from this place that's going to energize and accelerate the positive energies of Mars going into Aries, because it can be a beautiful thing, and we can see revolution, solution, and we can see a lot of good things manifest by just the collective, just getting out of this mindset of being divided and being suppressed and oppressed. So.
And I agree with you. We have the power. It's all ours. We have to stop giving away and using it for ourselves. So that's big. And also, I want to say something. Maybe a minute or two ago, if you guys rewind the tape, Indigo said the word love strung in her sentence. And as soon as she said that word, of course, Indigo has this energy about herself. But when she uses that word and she emanates into reality, that word, there's a frequency that comes out. And I caught a glimpse of it, even though you weren't saying I love you. It felt really, really good. So I wanted to say that. And I wanted to say I love you, Indigo. And thank you so much for doing the work that you do. Oh, I think you're frozen. Did I lose you? Guys, can you give me a thumbs up here? Do you guys still see me? I think we lost Indigo. We'll see if she comes back on. It looks like I'm still live here. Let me just double check. I think you're frozen. Okay, let's see here. See if we can get Indigo back on the chat here. Give me a thumbs up, guys. Can you still hear me? Are we still live on your side? Crypto Tarzan 5x5. Okay, there you go. Indigo, you're back.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so, no problem. So what did you hear before you lost connection? Where were you? Because I'll repeat it. It was really good.
Yeah, I was just going into the realizations of needing to take responsibility for the state of the world as an individual. Even if we don't feel responsible for particular things that have happened, well, like, our fellow humanity is a part of these things. Our fellow humanity is involved. Even the people who do the most heinous and evil things in the world, like, we are, even though we may not agree and we weren't particularly involved, we have to start taking some ownership for these things in order for changes to be made.
Okay, perfect. And so what I was responding to that is, of course, I agree with you. We need to take back our power. We have all the power. We need to stop giving it away and take control of our own destiny as humans. So that. And so what I was trying to say also, and I think this is where you cut out, and it's really odd that you cut out at this moment, was that a couple of minutes ago now, when you were talking about this, you verbalized the word love in one of your sentences. And as soon as you did, this huge stream of energy came through because when you say that word, you say it with so much bandwidth that it hit me, and I think it'll hit a lot of people in the chat as well. So I wanted to say back to that, I love you, Indigo, and thank you so much for doing everything that you do.
Well, thank you so much. I love you too, and I really appreciate you for giving me this platform and for deciphering through some of my lingo and explaining things. I really appreciate that. And yeah.
You're very welcome. Okay, so we had a few questions here. We'll try to get through them. How much time do we have, Indigo? Are you okay with time?
Yeah, I have like 10 more minutes. Yeah.
Okay, so here's the first question. Harley Davidson was asking, who were the Anunnaki? Do you want to touch that briefly?
Well, I have a lot of friends who can definitely explain it a lot better than I can. But I do know that Anunnaki, I think, overall is a general term meaning that beings that came from an unknown place in space, ultimately. I see them personally as beings that came from Nibiru. And I do feel that the Anunnaki are the ultimate identity of the metagalactic core, so the beings from the metagalactic core, because there is this ownership of the central sun in terms of their right to genetically modify DNA, right? They feel entitled to be the founders or the creators of Adamu. And so I do believe that they would be the founders of the 3 Abrahamic religions. But don't quote me on that, right?
Okay.
Yeah, so I think of them just in terms of it's a generic term for beings that came from space, but the location that they came from is undisclosed. And I do feel that they are considered a throne of power, so to speak, in terms of creation of the human species. And thrones of power basically uphold structures of law. They uphold everything that's been gifted to humanity in terms of medicine, all of history. And so they're like the founders. They're like the founders of our nations.
While we're on that subject, what do you make of the Zecharia Sitchin translation of some of these Sumerian tablets? My perspective now, going back and forth with some of the research that's been done recently, is that a lot of that has been contrived or manipulated and all that. What are your thoughts on that, if any?
I do know that Zecharia Sitchin did read cuneiform, so it was his direct translation. I know that a lot of people like his work. I have a lot of Hebrewic family and Hebrewic friends that don't necessarily agree with his account of it. They feel that it was tainted or was demonized in certain aspects in certain ways. So I know there's just some conflicting feelings about it overall. I personally haven't read it.
Okay.
I do know Gerald Clark. If you want another interpretation, Gerald Clark did just recently pass away, so rest in peace, Gerald Clark. But he then went and read Zecharia Sitchin and then learned also how to read cuneiform and then gave another account of the information. So if you're looking for more universal perspectives, you might want to check out Gerald Clark's stuff.
Okay. Very good answer. Thank you. John Chris says, how does the AI transhuman fit with us becoming an aquatic being? Is this the next root race? That's too big for the next 10 minutes. I think, John, that'll be a next show. So thank you for bringing that up. And Indigo and I will think about maybe doing a show basically based on that whole topic.
It seems to be a popular topic. I do know the centaurs. The centaurs are working heavily with this transformation. That's why we've seen such an uprising from Africa. Africa will ultimately be transformed. things that I've been seeing within my vision. So I haven't verified this through anybody else's writing or things like that. But what I've been seeing is that the Orions are basically training the Centaurians, and they are working cohesively with Africa to build up an entirely new nation that's going to ultimately bring people back to the original home of Africa. And so the returning to Israel might be the return to Africa, so to speak. And this like melanated uprising that I think is going to assist with that evolution in terms of the aquatic evolution.
Okay, very good. Crypto Townsend says, can I become the person I feel to be in my mind? My answer is yes, absolutely. And if you want to touch that very quickly, Indigo, and then I'll queue up another question for you.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you have to embody the belief. You have to believe it. If you can think it, you can and believe it. But ultimately, you have to learn to believe this without validation from the world.
Right. Yeah, it has to come from within. You'll get no not gratification, but what's that word? Somebody who agrees with you from the outside. You have to agree with you from the inside. A validation. Don't look for external validation. It's all inside. Joe, I think, has a good question here. And it relates to what you were saying about Mars and Aries coming together until next year. And I think this is where his question is rooted. He says, is this a difficult time for relationships?
Yes, absolutely. Because of just the global revolution, the global evolution, so many people are ascending. And a lot of people are ascending through twin flame experiences. Once you get through the twin experience, I do feel that ultimately you are guided back to source within yourself, source selves. It's very hard for people who are going through ascension to be in relationships. Because it is such an internal process. There is such a need for alone time and connecting to spirit and source within yourselves that it becomes very difficult to reintegrate the relationship aspect into your life. And so also at this time with technology and AI, this is also a huge division that I think gets in the way of our natural innate desire and yearning to be tribal.
Right.
To live in community, to have your mother and your grandmother and your father and your grandfather with you and be connected in your ancestral connections. All of this is kind of being disrupted through these EMF radio frequencies and things like that are disrupting the cohesive organicness of our inherent connection. And so, yeah, it's definitely a very difficult time for relationships.
And Joe, if you haven't watched the interview, the last one I just did with Jenny Moonstone, she talks about going through this crucible and, of course, the relationship and going through the archetypes of the divine masculine, the divine feminine, and dealing, like Indigo is just saying now, with all your past karma, but also the genetic code that's been downlined from your mother, your grandmother, and all that. So we're being asked to look at this stuff, and the wounded healer, of course, Chiron, is in this picture for us right now. So there's a lot of this inner dialogue and inner work that needs to be done, and of course that's going to shake up and break up relationships. But on the same but in the same energy, it can also strengthen those relationships if both partners are actually doing the work. So there is some positivity to that. That's my answer. Paul DP says, so would you say that the Anunnaki enslaved humanity or some other intelligence? Indigo.
Well, that is the story, is that the Anunnaki did modify the genetic code and did create us to be a slave race. And so, but I do feel you can unravel that genetic encoding. Mm-hmm. You can remove the Jehovian Anunnaki distortions that were placed. Unfortunately, these are planetary distortions. These are embedded within the landmass trauma. And so because of that, it is a universal and it's a collective trauma that extends, I think, beyond genetics and blood type, ultimately. And what I mean by that is, yes, you might go through these like revelations and these Cathara template healings and clearings and these vertical ascension column clearings and these light body restorations and these bioenergetic regenerative phases in your evolution. But ultimately, this is landmass trauma. So we can get plugged back into these distortions. We can fall unconscious, and they can reaffect us again cyclically. And so it does take a very high level state of awareness to remove yourself as a sovereign being from these slavery programs, because they exist within every facets of survival in our economic structures, our social structures, our everything. Even just going to the grocery store to get food is a form of slavery, because we are not organically harvesting our own gardens and hunting for our own food. So we are enslaved to a particular system to uphold the system. And so it's definitely a very interesting process, but you can remove yourself from it, and you can begin to become a very sovereign being. Activating gold. You want to activate the gold in your body, the golden portions of your molecular structure, because this is the most neutral, sovereign, alchemical, elemental aspect of your body that's going to enhance these revelations, these awarenesses. And because it was all about gold with the Anunnaki. They wanted us to dig the gold and then give it to them to basically prevent the atmosphere from collapsing. They were spraying it into the air to prevent, or at least that was within their world. Their world was falling.
I believe that's what I believe that's some of the translation from Sitchin, that they were using the gold to kind of fix their atmosphere on their dying or ailing planet. I remember something to that effect. Yeah. Last question here then.
But you see how it's a deflection from you realizing your own potential, the own gold within your own body. That is the key. That is the key to your freedom.
And on that note, that's a whole other subject. I'd like to get your thoughts on the next episode. We can get into maybe some of this Egyptian sexual onking and some of the rituals they were using with white gold and monatomic gold and this relations to recharging the body. So that's it's really cool, because I have this series going on now called the K-Files, Kundalini Secrets Revealed. And I've got Richard Allen Miller coming up. And we've got man, these are fascinating topics. And of course, if we're talking about humans taking charge of their own lives and their destiny, it starts with their energy source. And so there's a lot to be learned there. And I'm sure the algos are not going to like me for some of this information I'm going to put out. Okay, so this last question here from 40 Clover. What do you feel the outcome is? Did we already do that? Did I already ask you that one?
I think we did. I think we did kind of cover that. Okay. Just ultimately that the light will ultimately prevail. Okay. And that, as much as there are all these dark forces working within the development of artificial intelligence and specific nations that are the head of these things, like there are equally and abundantly procreational nations, and when I say nations, these are down to the recognition of a soul group or a quantified collective that is extenuating from a radial encryption or a radial energy signature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much, everyone, for all the great questions. I think we're running out of time here. So I guess in closing, I want to say thank you to everyone. And don't forget, you can get a personal book reading from Indigo here, and you can go to indigoangel222.com to book that. And it's quite fascinating. She goes through the starseed origins and your Akashic records, depending on the plan that you select. But it's
how did you resonate with your reading?
Oh, I can't wait to talk to you about it. I mean, I know you've been traveling and all that, but I loved going through that. I've read it a couple of times, and I made some notes on some of the topics you brought up, because I wanted to get more information on it and perhaps dive in a little bit deeper into the Akashic stuff. But yeah, it was very fascinating, and I really encourage you guys, if you haven't tried this, give it a shot. And and I recommend you also take a package where you do a one-on-one Zoom call with her to explain it, because there's so much data in there. It's really fascinating. And if it's your first attempt at looking at some of this information for your soul, you might need a guide to try to explain to you everything that's in there. And Indigo does a really good job. So you guys give that a try. Okay, so Indigo, in closing, I'll give you the floor here. How do you want to close this show? What are your last words?
My last words are just thank you for having me. And I was really happy to connect with all of your viewers today. And if you would like a reading, like you said, I do the starseed origin readings, and then also an Akashic record reading, which I do feel into that based upon the star encryptions that are within your birth chart. So I do feel like it's very, very accurate. I've kind of pinpointed this down to a science in terms of incarnational patterns and just the locations and where you've been throughout history. So it is a very in-depth account into your Akashic records. I also do JCL removals. So if you want to remove those Jehovian Anunnaki distortions within your vertical ascension column on a 15-dimensional scale, where we go through together interactively and make sure that you understand what you're removing, make sure that you understand, your connection to it, because all of this has to be self-realized for it to be awakened within you. And so I do a very thorough JCL Jehovian Anunnaki removal. And then also I do something called Advanced Avatar Master Practices, is where I teach you how to visualize, to strengthen your light body, and to develop some of these higher skills in sense of your telepathy, your ability to remote view, your ability to bilocate, your ability to basically induct energy and work with crystals. There's so many things that I do. It's all on my website, indigoangel222.com. And yeah, I would love to work with you if you feel so called. And yeah, thank you so much for having me today.
That was awesome. Thank you, Indigo. While I'm at it here, Polly P says, smash the like buttons. Yes, please. And please subscribe. And who is it? Barry Jackson says, I see 5K in JC's near future. I hope so. If the YouTube algorithms stick with me. And guys, so if you're watching now, let me just pull up.
Just be careful on your titles. I'm not saying that I want you to alter who you are, because I want you to be who you are. But if you're trying to get that high outreach, some things that other people have told me in terms of ideas to do that is to keep your titles. Don't put like the throat kill right in the title. Like, keep the title kind of auspicious, because the bots are less likely to take note of you if you do that.
Yeah, I might adhere to that advice, but for now, I'm just trying to be me and do my thing, and the hell with the the algos, and I'll reach who I'm supposed to reach. It's not a race, it's not a badge thing or a number. I really want to have these. I'm learning basically as I'm doing this, and I'm hoping that the people who are on the path with me to self-mastery find some benefit from some of these videos. So, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. So guys, coming up this week, we have a live psychic reading coming up with Salretta. I brought up the little screen there. So if you want to go to my channel and look at the tab that says upcoming live streams, there's quite a few shows this week, very, very impactful. So the psychic reading with Salretta, I think that's the third or the fourth iteration of that series. You guys can ask live questions there. The one after that is a galactic walk-in. Her name is Aurora. She basically took over a body whose soul was departing about 20 years ago. And so she's bringing a lot of this information to light. She's very much on a similar frequency as Indigo in terms of this galactic knowledge. And so that'll be a fascinating interview. We also have on Wednesday a live tarot reading with Jenny Moonstone. Looking forward to that. She's really going to pull out the cards for you guys. So if you have specific questions, start writing them down now so that when we're live, you remember what your question was. And then we have Rihanna Watson. We're going to talk about sacred sex and the healer within. So that's going to be a fascinating interview as well this week. And then next week, live with Dave Bronin, a buddy of mine. So we're going to talk about work is optional lifestyle and how to set up multiple revenue streams so that you can do this type of work and you can travel around the world and meet these crazy people and have fun in your life and retake control of your own destiny. So that's the lineup coming up. Yeah, so let me just remove this so we can see each other. Stop share. There you go. So thank you so much, Indigo. Again, I really love you. I thank you so much for being live on us and being brave. I know you were worried about being live on the show. You did an amazing job. That was great. And I think the people really appreciate it. So thank you again, Indigo, for all your time. I really appreciate it. So, everyone on YouTube, thank you so much for being on. I really love you guys. Please remember to hit like and subscribe. And we'll see you soon. Au revoir.